Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, listeners. This is your host, Andy Curry. Welcome to the program today. Listen, I'm excited because I have with me Dian Nissen, who has been speaking for 5 years professionally. But really, she's been speaking a lot longer than that, over 30 years, teaching and training people on health and other things. So she's no stranger to talking to the crowds and doing a good job. The content she speaks on, she has 3 topics. The first one is health and wellness strategies using lifestyle changes. The next one is safety and risk management when it pertains to the trampoline industry. Yes, I said trampoline industry. You're going to really enjoy this, so stay tuned. The third one is how to be more creative in reinvention. Dian is based out of California. She speaks in the U.S. and internationally, and she has a book in the works. So Dian, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
We are fired up to have you here with us. Now, let's talk about your speaking business. First of all, when we were talking before the interview, you had mentioned who invented the trampoline, and let's start off with that little bit of information so that the listener knows what that's about, and then we'll go into your speaking business.
Oh, sure. Well, my father, George Nissen, was the inventor of what we know as the modern-day trampoline. He created that in the early 1930s, and he got the idea when he went to the circus and saw some trapeze performers and started playing around with that idea in his backyard and went to the junkyard and got some items to tool around with and came up with sort of a bouncing rig, but later refined it over the years. He was also a gymnast and a tumbler and a diver, and he wanted to improve how he could perform on that, and he eventually found that other people liked bouncing on his rig and slowly became popular. He knew he'd hit on something as a business when he took his one of his early prototypes to a YMCA camp in Iowa one summer where he was working, and the kids were jumping on it and trying it out, and he couldn't get them off of the trampoline to go swim. And if you know about Iowa in the summer, it's pretty hot. And he knew that he was onto something.
Well, that's really neat. We'll talk more about that here in just a minute, but I wanted to set that up as a precursor to your information. So let's go into your speaking business. Your big thing is health and being creative and reinvention and such. So let's have you tell us about who you're speaking to, what you're telling them, and how you're helping them.
Well, I speak to anyone who really wants to improve their health through making good lifestyle changes, learning more about what they can do about that, because what you need to have is knowledge about good health strategies and how to change your lifestyle, and it's a one small step at a time. I teach people how they can do this in small increments over time, and eventually you see over the time period, and you have a nice track record for that, and you see the improvements. And when people's health improves, their self-image improves, sometimes there's weight loss, and people are more productive, and they can improve their performance not only in their personal lives but at work.
Okay. And what about the reinvention part, the be more creative and reinvention? Tell us about that.
Well, we're always all reinventing our lives, and as we grow older, there's more reason to do that. And I believe even now, people are changing careers on a more frequent basis than in the past. But this applies not only to your life and your career, but again, back to your body and your health. Your body's constantly changing as we live on this planet and as it ages, and there are things that you can do to change that. And so instead of thinking, oh, I'm growing older, then you can change that and change your mindset, and in turn, the habits that you have will change your body. And it isn't just a downhill slide. So if somebody say 40, they think, oh, that's it, or 50, 60, everybody has a set number where they think, oh, I'm going downhill now. We change that, and we change that thought process and that perception and the habits, and people realize that they can keep reinventing themselves physically as well as mentally. This transfers over into how you think, how you create, how you learn. When kids are small, they're very creative, and they have a lot of exuberance this way, and slowly that changes with time, the same way our bodies do. And it's just about reinfusing those new thoughts and new perceptions to reinfuse the energy and the creativity.
So basically, you're saying that the healthier you are, the better you're going to think and react and be.
Absolutely. A healthy mind and body is just the basis for having a healthy brain, having good mental fitness as well, for thinking, creating. So someone can continue to reinvent themselves. They can continue to be vibrant and be productive and creative into many, many years, into their later years.
You know, that's terrific advice. I've spoken with lots of speakers, and there's been a few that talk about health, not to the degree that you do, but they mention how important it is. And one of them that I was speaking to talked about, you know, people talk about being healthy, but the difference is execution, getting it out there and getting it done. And I just turned 53 not too long ago, and I've been going to the gym since I was about 32. So I lift weights, and I used to run, and then I quit running, then I'd run again. But I sit so much lately that I started going to the gym early in the morning at 5:30 to walk for 30 minutes, you know, fast and slow, fast and slow. So should I be doing more?
If that's working for you, it's good. You might ask yourself, is that working for you mentally? Are you getting up and thinking, goody, I get to do this? Sometimes people don't like the idea of exercise, but I always suggest trying to find things that will motivate you, and hopefully it's not a negative type of a thing. Some people are exercising because they're afraid of something happening, and that can be an initial motivator, but not perhaps good in the long term. It kind of initiates changes, or people look in the mirror, or somebody says something, and then they're forced to do something, or they go to the doctor and their numbers are high, and they say, oh, okay, I've got to start making some changes. That's one way to get motivated. But to stay motivated and to continue on, you need to find some things that, are working well with your body. So you need to ask yourself, is this working for me now? And if you hadn't done it for a while, well, maybe you need to do it a little more or a little less. As we get older, we do need to make some different choices in our workout program and the things that we are eating and how we're handling ourselves. It doesn't mean it necessarily has to be easier. It just might mean that it has to be different. And you can really start to see it over time. If you make small changes, you'll start to see this was a good move, this wasn't a good move. I feel good when I do some A, B, and C, and when I do that over several weeks, I feel even better. So you continue down that path, and part of the reinvention or recycling is to readdress that every so often, to see that it's not getting stale for you mentally or physically, because the body is a dynamic force just as the mind, and you can't just do the same thing over and over again. It gets boring for both your body and your mind.
Right. So you're prescribing different exercises to people. You're giving them suggestions on what to do. So let's look at someone my age range, in their 50s. What are some of the things you would prescribe to me, for instance?
Well, of course, it depends on what your personal health history is and what you have in your background, if you have any physical abilities or disabilities. But it's also about the things that you like to do and don't like to do. And so setting up, for example, for physical activity, we'd look at it, what you would like to do, what you're used to doing, and what you said before, you're getting up and you're doing more of that. If that's working for you for a while, I would just start you with that if it's working, and have you get that on a regular, frequent basis. So you've got some kind of regularity going on. And maybe it's not so exciting for you. You don't think you're losing the weight you wanted, or you're not as fit as you thought you would be after a month of that, then we'll readdress it. And I teach tools so that someone can look at that and figure out where to go from there. And we look at how you're taking care of the rest of your time. Are you resting well? Are you eating well? Some of the other behaviors, what's your stress level going on? How are you thinking about these things as well? So there's several components in setting up your program, but just simply, starting right now, people can just start immediately by trying to do something physically active that works for them, and then start checking and seeing if that's working for them. If they hate it, I always say if you absolutely hate it and it doesn't feel good, or you feel like you're hurting yourself, then definitely go away from that, because your body's telling you that. But you have to remember, if someone's been sedentary for a long time, or you haven't been doing that activity for a long time, even myself, when I've started something new, again, that I didn't do for a few years, oh boy, then, I don't feel so hot, I'm sore, I'm cranky about it, I feel blobby about it. Well, if you stick with it a few more days, you start realizing maybe you needed to just do a little bit more of it, and you needed to put that frequency in there and get past that mild discomfort, icky stage, and trick your brain into it as well as your body, and suddenly it starts going back to a better zone, and it starts responding to the positive side of that, and it starts wanting it rather than not wanting it.
Yeah, I would agree. I noticed when I first started going to the gym, there was like roughly a 2-week period. It was pretty easy to kind of talk yourself out of going, to justify it. But you just make yourself do it, and after I'd say 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or whatever, for me anyway, it became a thing I wanted to do.
Yes, and there are ways to get yourself to do that, to stick with it. Starting is usually the hardest part for a lot of people, and like you said, we come up with so many excuses on how not to do this, and it isn't just physical activity. I have the same thing. It's hard to sit down and write. It's hard to come in. For some people like to clean their house, and other people don't. We all have things that we do and don't like to do, and we try to avoid those behaviors, but we know it might be good to do it. So there's a step that you have to take forward, which is going from inertia and procrastination to actually doing it, which just has to be a little bit. Just the activity of sitting down and writing, or getting up and going in the car to go to the gym, or putting the shoes on to walk outside to go for a walk, that gets you out of the inertia. Then you have to stick with it. And I tell people, just even for the actual workout, just tell yourself you're only doing 5 minutes. And you get through 5 minutes, you do 10. And once you've done 15, well, heck, you might as well do a little bit more, because you've already gone to that point. But it's about fooling yourself for a while that way, and
right.
Just letting yourself know it's okay. And the same, instead of saying, oh, I've got to do this every day for 3 months, just say, I'm going to do it today, and then I'll try it again tomorrow. Maybe I'll try once this week or twice this week, and lower the bar so that you can actually accomplish the little steps, and then you'll start to stick with it.
Yeah, that's terrific advice. Let's move real quickly to you're talking to the trampoline industry on safety and risk management. Talk about that just a minute or two.
Well, I've been working in a very new, fast-growing industry called the indoor trampoline park industry that has literally exploded throughout the globe. And I'm working with that industry on making everything as safe and as fun of an experience for participants as possible. Because when you're bouncing on a trampoline, there is possible risk involved, just as you have when you go skiing or you're surfing or swimming on the beach. And so we're creating manuals and programs on how people can operate their businesses more efficiently, safely, and to meet the demand of people coming into their parks, because they're very popular, so there are high numbers, and you have bouncers of all ages. And so there are some things that need to be incorporated as far as what the jumpers are doing and what parents can do if they're bringing their kids in, but it's really for all ages. And so I'm helping them with the programs on how to enforce that and make sure that that experience is a safe, fun event.
Okay. Now let's move on to let's go back to your dad and the invention and all that, because as I promised listeners at the beginning, we'd hit that a little bit. And included in that with your dad inventing the trampoline, you had told me prior to the interview that you've got a lot of experience in invention. What's the word? Not trademarks, but
patents.
Patents. That's the word. Sorry.
Yes.
And so you've got a lot of experience in that as well. Is that correct?
Well, I basically grew up in this world. I bounced in a gym that was attached to my father's company, the Nissen Corporation in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and that was a very large gym attached to the manufacturing plant where we performed in there and practiced, but he always had many of his innovations in trampoline and gymnastics and other sports equipment. And we always joked that we were the test dummies at the time and got to try things out. But I watched him and learned a great deal from him on how he made his inventions and how he innovated. And he had very many patents throughout his lifetime. And in fact, the trampoline is one that he coined that name, and he trademarked it. And he had that, and eventually people copied it, and it became popular enough that it became generic, like Google and Kleenex.
Right.
And
I did not know that.
Yeah. So there are some processes that go on through that, and that whole industry grew from there. And now I'm proud to say that not only was he the inventor and manufacturer of trampoline equipment and innovations, many of the trampolines and trampoline equipment used now is basically based on what he designed. There are new innovations, of course, which is wonderful, but if you look at it, you can see that it's based on the original designs he created, and that's all shapes and sizes of trampolines, as well as he had a vision as he did this, that this activity was not only good for fun and health and fitness, which is where I tie in my health and wellness background, but it also became sport. And in the year 2000, after much work and effort, the sport of trampolining became an official Olympic sport in Sydney.
Awesome. Now, how did he come up with the name trampoline? Do you know?
Yes. It's one of the most commonly asked questions I get. He had different ideas for the name, but because he was also a springboard diver and an acrobat, he traveled down to Mexico and was performing down there with diving and acrobatics, and he learned that trampoline, without an E, is the translation in Spanish for springboard or diving board. And he liked that. And when he came back and he started working more on his invention, he added the E, and it sounded good, and it stuck, and that's where it came from.
Interesting. I remember as a kid going to the neighbor's house and knocking on their door, "Can we jump on your tramp?"
Yep.
that was the word for that one. But that's fascinating information. Well, Diane, how can people get a hold of you should they want to hear you speak and know more?
They can visit my website. It's called trampolinediva.com. And I came up with Trampoline Diva. It's a little tongue-in-cheek. I guess I can be a diva sometimes, but it's really more because I truly know just about as much as anyone else and more about the trampoline and the sport and all things related. And I have a very popular Facebook page as well, Twitter and Instagram, that's Trampoline Diva, and people can see fun things and learn about trampoline and trampoline safety and the Olympic sport of trampolining, as well as contacting me for speaking.
Okay, well, fantastic. Well, Diane, thank you so much for pulling back the curtain and showing us a peek on what goes on in your life and your speaking business. That was fascinating information.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.